Hello and thank you for joining this Monday's edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Esther Omokwariola. Today on the program, Ekiti State imposes curfew as Nigeria's COVID-19 cases hits 100,087 with 1,028 new infections. And later on the show, Governor Ekiti of Ondo State makes case for modern military equipment and state police as bandits impose levy on Niger communities, demand 5 million naira monthly to avoid attacks. I will be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Mojid Jamiu. Journalist Hangout starts now. Now, as the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic hits us harder, several state governments are striving to bail the water when it's still ankle deep. In Ekiti State, the Governor Kayode Fayemi has imposed a curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the state beginning from this Monday. Now, the state government also restricted all gatherings to 20 people as part of efforts to contain the pandemic. Meanwhile, the total number of coronavirus cases in Nigeria has risen to 100,087 after a record of new 1,028 infections. So there is still fire on the mountain. Babajide, with this new record, many are still doubtful, surprisingly, about the existence of COVID-19. Why do you think this continued unbelief is still on?
Yeah, a number of reasons for that. I think some Nigerians, even educated Nigerians, who should know better, some of them came out to say, look, this is just malaria in another form. That sowed the seed of disbelief in the hearts of our people. Many of our people do not want any form of lockdown. They just want to get on with their lives. And when you tell them that, oh, this lockdown is meant to preserve their lives, they will tell you that, look, this thing is just malaria. Whatever happens, people will die. Something will kill people, you know, that kind of. Yeah, something will kill people, but should we just carelessly yield ourselves to death? Just say, death, come. Who does that now? You've got to give yourself a fighting chance to stay alive. God did not create you to die cheaply. So people can't be simply inviting death to come and enjoy a feast in their homes. So when some of our people should know better were treated at the isolation centers and they came out to say, look, is this not malaria? It sowed a big seed of doubt, of disbelief in the hearts of our people. The truth is, malaria and COVID-19 have some similar symptoms. You know, headache, lack of appetite, and all that. But the truth is, for someone who has been going through, who has grappled with malaria for years, when you experience that headache that seems like your head is going to burst open, you should know that this is not malaria. It's the severity of the symptoms of COVID-19 that should tell people that this really is not malaria. And what is the point that some people are making? Lack of taste, lack of smell. It's not a malaria symptom. What is consistent with COVID-19. Breathlessness is not a malaria symptom. As well. Yes, for children who have malaria, sometimes they could experience pneumonia, but not in adults. So to simply make this thing look like, oh, it's malaria in another form, is just not right. The rate at which this, especially this second strain, is killing people, And the fact that it's even, you know, before now, we used to think that people aged between 15 to 40 years are most likely to survive the first reign of it. But it's killing a lot of, right now, this one is killing a lot of people within that age bracket, 15 to 40. So this one, in terms of the severity of its symptoms, it's not something to joke with at all. It's not something to joke with. And we have lost our friends. So this is not the time to be doubting that this thing exists. We have made the argument that if two countries, America and China, that are so diametrically opposed to one another, both in terms of ideology and everything, US and Iran, they don't see eye to eye. If they all agree that this is a big threat to humanity, and they are not living in the denial, why should we here be behaving like COVID-19 does not exist? I can understand why someone like Alibaba will be swearing at people who are saying it does not exist. They need to go to the IDP camp or make themselves available to be infected. Because I'm sure that if you try to do that, even some of the greatest critics or unbelievers will not agree to be infected. They won't agree. But if you keep saying it does not, okay, make yourself available to be infected. The IDH is there. You know? So, I think at this stage, government should just continue to enlighten our people, let them realize that this is a threat that we must face collectively.
Right.
I appreciate the efforts of the governor of Ekiti State. He does not want to do a full lockdown, but at least some of these measures will help.
Right.
Churches, you can open, religious centers can open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but they are going to limit them to just 2 services. 2 services, then you go home, and you must close latest by 2 p.m. You can't exceed 2 p.m. Everyone is just making moves to fight this, but at our individual levels, we must make up our minds that we want to defeat this pandemic. Government can only do its best. It's left to each and every one of us to take those precautions, because they are the best way to fight it.
Now, Majid, as much as Babajide has said a lot with concerns to the people's responsibility to ensure safety now that we are in the second wave of COVID-19, what can be done now to quell this level of disbelief among Nigerians about the existence of COVID-19?
Those who won't believe in the last day, that an end time will come, no matter how much you preach to them or how deep you preach to them, they still won't believe. A lot of people continue to live in self-denial that this thing is not real. Now, I'm going to mention some names. I mean, because they have posted their experiences on Facebook. He mentioned Alibaba. I mean, most Nigerians will know distinguished Senator Babafemi Ojudu. He posted his experience on Facebook at the weekend. And if you know him very well, if you see the pictures he posted,
you'll be terrified.
You will be terrified. He must have lost between 20 and 25 kg. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
And from his experience, I mean, and he said he caught it, he had that feeling that he caught it at a party he attended mid-December. Now, another journalist, I mean, I'm going to mention her name too because she posted her experience on Facebook, Lara Oweye-Wise. She's one of the aides to the Deputy Senate President. I was looking at the pictures she posted while recovering and after she has fully recovered, and you would think she's a 60-year-old or even 70-year-old woman.
Wow.
You know, Ojudu was looking like an 80-year-old man. I was like, is this Senator Ojudu? These are the kind of things COVID does. And in fact, you know, the governor of Ekiti State, for him to have taken this decision, is not a very good decision
it was
to
a
him.
victim of it.
He's been a victim. And when he was relaying his experience, I mean, he said at times I mean, if you put on the air condition, it will be hotting. If you tell them to put it off, you will feel somehow. You can't stand up, you can't sit, you won't be comfortable. At times, you won't even recall the things you just discussed with somebody, the kind of things you feel. So, I've lost somebody very, very close. The former, my last employer, the chairman of leadership newspaper, Simon Isaiah. I mean, he was in the office on Thursday.
Yes.
By Friday evening, he was dead.
Wow.
COVID. So, for some people, I mean, and we had an elderly person, a media giant in this country said, they are just playing with this, it's just malaria.
Yeah.
That, I mean, of course, I got it.
After he was treated,
after he was treated, and he survived. He said, no, it's done. I mean, I'm not going to mention his name, but a lot of people know him. So, with that kind of statement, there is no way some people would believe that. I mean, he said it's just malaria. You see, the thing is, COVID presents mild, severe, and critical. So maybe his own was just mild. In fact, there are some people that will test positive and they won't even know that they had this thing. It's only the test that will show. There will be no symptoms at all. So for that kind of person, if that kind of person gets himself into an isolation center, I mean, after testing positive and he was treated, he can continue and quote unquote and foam in the mouth, like a friend of mine will say that nothing has happened. But for somebody like Babafemi Odudu, who has gone through this, even the governor of Lagos State, I mean, also experienced COVID. He was in for about two weeks. So that's why you see the governors who has experienced this thing, they are taking proactive measures. The governor of Lagos State also just issued a directive that only levels 15 and above must come to the office till January 18 in the first instance. And it says schools cannot open. Just like the governor of the state, who is also the chairman of the governor's room. You see, we are getting to a level that I think the governor's room should meet again and issue a national directive or advise the PTF, the Presidential Task Force, that is a time for another probably national lockdown, because we have a clear and present danger staring us in the face. The case of the Olushabumi family in Ibadan is a critical one, and it's verified. 3 siblings died in a space of 72 hours to COVID. Olushabumi, our elder brother, and the younger sister. So this thing is not a joke. So people should take things more seriously. I mean, and I think
this second
strain
is very dangerous.
It is very dramatic. It presents itself in a very funny manner. I mean, by the time you think you are recovering, before you know it, I mean, the person is gone.
So an uncle was even he did a test. That's why in this world, sometimes you need luck to be alive. He did a test. They gave him a result which showed that he was negative. Then he noticed that
it was not okay.
He was not feeling well, and things were getting worse for him. So he went back, and lo and behold, the bad news was given to him that he was positive. So the truth is, when you start having this severe cough, you start having headache,
and difficulty in breathing,
those are not malaria symptoms. So you should, at that point, you should be thinking of going in for a test. Because this one does not give you that long window of the other one. Before you know it, that person is gone. I was talking about the Nigerian who owned one of the biggest medical practice in the US. And he came home for his uncle's burial. Edward Bemudu. And within this, somebody who went for a test before traveling. Within this, the thing killed him. It does not give room. And the rate, you know, that last one I was discussing with my colleague Doja, who did an excellent special report at the IDH. She said that in the past when she went to the IDH in Yaba, that she never saw anything like oxygen cylinder.
Yeah.
But that this time around, the whole landscape, the whole area, they put oxygen cylinders on the ground. And that right now, no less than 80% of the inmates, which is another way by which patients are called. 80% of the inmates are on oxygen. To tell you how severe this one is, to tell you that this one is not, this new strain of it is not what one can joke with. And if we even feel like joking about it, read Babafemi Ojudu's account. Because usually we have malaria, it doesn't come with hiccups now. You're struggling to breathe, you have hiccups. It's a different, this is a totally different variant of COVID-19 that we were used to. And look at even the fatality rate is about 3% now, higher than not only are we experiencing a rise in cases, we are also experiencing a rise in the fatality rate. So this is not something to joke about. The governors must come together and say, look, it's about time that we took this thing seriously. But if I has led the way, I expect his colleagues to do likewise. I'm impressed that 20. When you start talking about 50, that's when some people will be cutting corners and turning 50 to 60 or 70. So 20, that should be enough.
Right, let me hold your thoughts there. We have a caller from Georgia, United States. Oracle, please go ahead with your contribution.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. I want to confirm, we are watching you from here. Yes. We know that this very pandemic is real, and we can confirm it's real here. For anyone that doesn't know it's real, 100.1% real. But I want to ask one particular question. How do you convince people in my country, Nigeria, that it's real? When I called my sisters, I called my brothers in Lagos, all of them are struggling to register a SIM card. And I'm watching on TV news, I see many people crowded everywhere. No face mask, no distancing or whatever. Crowded everywhere, packed. So how do you convince people that this is real when the government is asking people to go for this to take this very risk to register a SIM card?
A valid concern raised there. Thank you very much, Oracle, for that point raised. So, John,
yes, honestly, I think the presidential task force on this pandemic on COVID-19, headed by the Secretary to the Government of Federation, Boss Mustafa, should issue a directive immediately to whoever is involved in this national identity management national identity number, NIN, to stop that thing immediately. Because I passed through Alausa this morning, and the crowd in that place is crazy. You see, we have about 22 million people in Lagos. If there is going to be a problem, it will start from Lagos. In other states, I don't know what the situation is in other states, but we have more people who need driver's license in Lagos. We have more people who need to do international passport in Lagos. Those are the things you need this NIN number for. And for crying out loud, why must we enforce this NIN now? Fine, we can say that yes, it's something that has been on for some time, but because of this pandemic, I think government should take a decisive step, because the results of this gathering of the crowd, you need to see what happened at Alausa, the NIMC office this morning. The crowd is unbelievable.
You sent me a picture, and
it's unbelievable. So I think the federal government, I want to believe the Minister of Information is also listening, because there's no point saying that we should all keep social distance and maintain all COVID-19 protocols when people need to do, and because you said without the NIN, the SIM will be blocked.
You set a deadline.
You set a deadline. So people need this thing. So can't we increase this level and allow this pandemic to go down first before? We can see the crowd. You can see the crowd. That's the registration center this morning. Is there any social distancing here?
Nil.
You can see that. So it's crazy.
People will just see us as a bunch of jokers.
As a bunch of jokers.
Later on, we'll be calling ourselves, when they talk about Sena climb, we will be saying that
our own is a
Sena climb. We'll be deceiving ourselves that our democracy is better than that of US.
Or that of
is
America.
This how they do things?
I mean,
is this how they do things?
What is the critical need for NIN now? Is it a matter of life and death? I mean, if you say you want to use it to arrest criminals, but then must we do it during this pandemic? I mean, we
can't we let this thing even go down a little bit before we force this thing? This is the thing. Because if this thing, my problem is if we suffer an explosion, our health system cannot manage it. Look at America. When they suffered an explosion, see the way they are pushing themselves. When they suffered an explosion, they had to be begging South Korea to give them ventilators.
Yeah.
Because they were pushed to that point. Look at the Italian PM at a point even saying now at this stage is God. It's only God that we can call.
On Friday, the mayor of London, Said Khan, I forgot his first name, he said the COVID situation in London, despite the fact that they have moved the whole of London to tier 4, that's the highest level of lockdown. He said it is out of control.
Yes.
Hospitals now, I mean, they are now even advising people to stay at home and be receiving treatment. As long as you can call and you can see talk, they will tell you stay at home. Somebody called and hospital said he's having difficulty, but they said you are the one calling. Don't worry.
You'll come.
In US, they said ambulances should not take people that they know that the risk of survival is below 10%, which means they have condemned some people to death. That's in US, in New York. So this thing is serious.
Look at California, the way it's killing people.
So, in US today, they are recording minimum of 4,000 deaths for the past 5 days.
They are close to 400,000.
4,000 deaths on a daily basis. So we don't want a situation where we don't have 1/10 of the health facilities of that. Jide was mentioning the oxygen. They use 300 cylinders of oxygen on a daily basis.
In Lagos now.
In Lagos now.
Look at that word. Look at that word. See huge
and you see the
cylinders of oxygen. I've never seen anything like that.
300.
Never seen anything like
300.
That. Inside an hospital ward, to be seeing, look, see how big it is. To be seeing big cylinders like that inside an hospital ward.
And the new oxygen plant that was built only has a capacity for 60 in a day, because it has to purify that. It's a very delicate, and I mean it's a process that must run out its time. It can only manufacture or produce 60 cylinders a day, and you can imagine in a situation where yesterday we had about 683 new cases in Lagos.
Just look at someone struggling to breathe.
So people are still not taking this thing serious.
Right, let's hold your thoughts there. I understand we have a caller from Edo State. Said, please go ahead with your contribution. Oh dear, apologies, we lost you there in the call. But you call back if you can. So, Babajide, with all that what has been said now, COVID-19, we understand right now is really, really severe, and something needs to be done to, put this, to hold the spread of the pandemic. But in as much as the PTF has hinted of a likely possibility of a lockdown, and Ekiti State has, taken a further directive or taken a further step to impose a curfew to stop the further spread of the pandemic, are we likely prepared for the economic implications if we witness another lockdown?
We are not going to, when we talk about lockdown, there are different layers of lockdown. No one is saying shut down the country totally, or at the level that we shut down the first time. But you can look at sectors that can encourage an explosion, because it's the explosion that is my concern. So sectors that can encourage an explosion, hospitality, events and all that, you can look at them and set some criteria that have to be met. For example, this is not the time for big parties and all that. It has I can see government enforcing some of these things. Say, look, you cannot converge. You can't converge in a nightclub, for example, and be dancing and all of that. They are not taking measures. So those measures have to be enforced. And then we can't be telling people that 50 of you can't worship in a church, 50 of you can't gather in a place, 20 of you can't gather in a place, and the NIN thing is going on. With huge crowd, nobody wants to lose his, wants to be disconnected. You know, because with this phone, people do businesses, people make their money. They are not relying on government to come and do everything for them. If we leave this thing to go on, it will reinforce the belief of many people that the government doesn't care about the ordinary man. You know? So there's no way that we can be preaching physical and social distancing, while at the same time exposing our people to danger in form of this NIN thing that is going on. There has to be better coordination in the government. There has to be. They need to talk to themselves. How come the secretary of the government or the federation, so high up in the government, is the head of the presidential task force, PTF, and a minister is bent on going ahead with this thing? Is it that there's no coordination anymore? Somebody cannot tell him that not at this time, that we are battling with this? Look at the deadline that he issued the other day. A very short deadline. He knew in his heart that there was no way that deadline could be met. Yet he went ahead and issued that deadline. And it caused a lot of stampede before it was extended by another 6 Even by the extension, it still cannot be met. We will wait and see whether, because you look at the number of people, if we have a situation in which we have more than 200,000 Nigerians are connected to this, have phone lines, and you have a situation in which 164,000 of them are still have not linked their SIM to the NIN. Are you going to disconnect 164 million people? Because February 9, in no time, February 9 will be here. There is no capacity, except Pantami is deceiving himself. There is no capacity to deliver between now and February 9. He knows it. He should know it. He's a scientist. He should know it. Because you look at the mechanism. How do we do it? Is it possible? How many outlets do we have? How many people can we register in a day? Let us even start by saying, okay, how many people can we register in a day? Let's see if we can get to that threshold of 164 million people. What is the arrangement made for the rural centers, for example? If we register 1 million people per day, it will take us 164 days.
All right, let's quickly hold your thoughts. We know, because we have a lot to talk about with regards to COVID-19. We need to go on a short break. We'll be back with more discussions. Stay with us. You're welcome back. You're still on to Journalist Hangout, and we're still discussing the COVID-19 pandemic and other safety concerns with regards to this very delicate matter. So, Majid, let's look at the issue of vaccines now. Even though there is a light at the end of the tunnel, Nigeria right now will receive about 100,000 doses of vaccines before the end of this month. And there are hopes that the country wants to vaccinate about 140 million Nigerians before the end of December of next year. What do you make of this development?
Well, it's share news, but then 100,000 vaccines. When Kenya... You did 2 doses. Yes, how many people can down? You need 2 doses. And Kenya made its own deposits about a month before Nigeria. So they will be getting theirs before now. It took even the National Assembly to remind them that we need to input 505 billion for these vaccines in the budget. The Ministry of Health, probably they forgot or something. They never did that. So it took us some time before we even placed the order. Although, well, they said the 100,000, but how are we going to administer even the first 100 of what? They have told us that
given that the priority to be given to healthcare workers.
Healthcare workers, I mean,
and other.
But if there is a way, see, because it's not even just getting the vaccine that is the issue. I mean, there are certain conditions that, I mean, you need to put it some as low as minus 10 degrees centigrade for the storage. So for it to be efficient, for it, I mean, for the efficacy of the vaccine, you must keep to the terms of usage and storage. And you could see some of them, why they have some special aircraft that they used to. It's not just your normal fridge or freezer that will store it. So we need to make all those, I mean, conditions available before we can even talk of because if you don't store it in a particular temperature, I mean, it's as good as you have not administered the vaccine. So I hope we have made all the necessary arrangements. We have contacted all the experts, or rather the producers, to ship along with the vaccines the storage equipment that we use to hold them before they are administered. Because it's not when they come that you start administering, because these things are very, very critical for it, I mean, to actually do the immunity job that it's supposed to do. It's not just about getting the vaccines. In other countries, of course, they have the facility. Even their weather alone, you can see that, but we are in a very hot and humid environment here. So we need, and your electricity or power supply must be constant for, I mean, to maintain that temperature that you want to keep it. So I want to hope that those in the healthcare factor, those who are making arrangements for these vaccines, have taken into consideration all these prevalent conditions for the storage and for the administration of the vaccine before just bringing them in. We have had instances where we import some equipment into the country and they are lying fallow at the various government hospitals and facilities, I mean, without being installed.
All right, let's understand. We have another caller, Gbenga, calling from Magodo. Please go ahead with your contribution.
All right, well done at the studio. You are doing a great job. Now, my contribution is, out of 200 million people, we are bringing in 50,000. You know, that's a shame. You know,
it's 100,000.
Hello?
They're bringing in 100,000 doses.
That 100,000 is for 50,000 people because one person will take
two doses.
Two doses at 21 days interval. So that 100,000 is for 50,000 people out of a country of more than 200 million. So what are we saying? So, and the challenge is, who is going to speak to this government to do the right thing? You know, who is going to call them to order? Like the other person said, Babaji's partner, he said they have to remind them to include it. So please, that's what you are going to do for us. Tell them to do something, to act fast. And that 50,000 is just small. It's just like dropping a pin in the ocean. It will go nowhere. No, you know.
Yeah, valid point raised there. Thank you very much. Babaji, do you have something to add to
this? They are making other moves to bring in the vaccines from Russia, from China, you know, but the Pfizer vaccine is projected that it will come by March, you know. The truth is, see, I'm not thoroughly excited about vaccines. All that this vaccine can help us to do is to interrupt and slow down the transmission. Vaccines will not put an end to coronavirus. In fact, there is no guarantee that once you take the vaccine, that you get immunity from it. I've listened to doctors on CNN, on some of the big networks in America, and they are saying that even the new strain, they are not sure that the vaccine will be able to stand up to the new strain, because some of the severe symptoms that we are now seeing were not part of the original strain of the virus, for which the vaccine was designed. So this is the situation. Let everyone protect himself. The hygiene, take hygiene seriously. That is the best guarantee. That's the best guarantee. rather than wait for vaccine. Even the WHO has said, look, not everybody can be vaccinated. It's just not possible. In America, how many people are going to be vaccinated in the US? How many?
They have started like a month ago. They have only done 22 million. And that's the first dose.
So this is the thing.
All right, quickly move on to our next issue. Even though COVID-19 still is a topical matter, we will discuss this perhaps in our next edition of Journalist Hangout. So, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State makes case for modern military equipment and state police as armed bandits impose levy on communities in Niger State, demand for 5 million naira monthly to avoid attacks. So, Babajide, when we hear such stories like this, when we have desperate means, calls for desperate measures, and the Ondo State government is, well, advocating perhaps, better military equipment and, of course, state police, what do you make of his move, and how viable do you think the creation of state police will be in this country anytime soon?
Well, state police for now is unconstitutional. If we are able to amend the constitution, fine. But the constitution says there shall be one police. You saw all the wahala that came with the Amotekun thing, I support Amotekun 150%. And I saw Amotekun at work when I drove through Osun and Ekiti State during Christmas. So I believe that beyond the structures, the policing structures that we have, which is the federal police, there is a need to have policing at state level, whether in form of constabulary or Amotekun. The police are overwhelmed. They need support. And Amotekun can provide that support because at least they understand the terrain, they understand their localities very well. If governors don't turn them to an urban, allow them to patrol the forests of our communities, all of these people kidnapping people, they'll be able to fish them out. I was impressed to read about Amotekun arresting some kidnappers in Ondo State. And even in Oyo State, that has begun.
Yeah.
Although you see signs that some enemies of progress are trying to deliberately misunderstand what they are doing. Trying to put some spin on what is going on. They would rather have us continue to suffer kidnapping on our roads and all that. But the truth is, if you keep Amotekun or whatever you choose to call it, you put them in local communities where we do not have a presence of police, they will be able to do a good job. And when arrests are made, the law says they should hand over to the police. The job of prosecution belongs to the police. But at least they will complement the work of the police, not to suddenly see themselves as alternatives for the police or what the police is not. To that extent, I support Amotekun because I know that state police cannot work now. The constitution does not permit it, and I'm not sure that we can successfully effect that amendment to the constitution. If we want to do that, who knows when we'll succeed at it. So we have to look at the security situation at this time and find a way to solve the problems.
Right.
The governor has talked about the need to equip the armed forces. I agree absolutely. And on this program, I've requested for the army, especially the army, to be provided all that they require. It takes time for some of these weapons to come in, but we must make the move. Once they come in, it belongs to us. The alternative is to do what Goodluck Jonathan did. It was to go and buy weapons on the black market in Ukraine. We bought T-72 Russian tanks from Ukraine. But those T-72 Russian tanks did a wonderful job for us. And some of them are still being used as we speak today. So you need those game-changing weapons. We need plenty of helicopter gunships. I've said repeatedly that in countries that had to fight the kind of insurgency that we are fighting, countries like Cambodia, countries like Sri Lanka, countries like Colombia, they use a lot of helicopter platforms. Right now, we do not have enough. That is the truth. We must invest, because with the helicopter gunships, you can provide close air support to the troops. And it is a real nightmare for these bandits and other criminal elements when you see the ground attack helicopter moving so close and strafing you with his rockets. So we need plenty of them. If we can have plenty of them, and then the drones. These days, countries are even manufacturing solar powered drones that can remain airborne for hours and hours, for days and days, without having to come down. Drones that you can use for reconnaissance as well as attacking the enemy.
Drones.
Yes. On area vehicles, that's what they are called. So we need plenty of them. We used to have drones, but our drones are currently largely unserviceable. So we need to bring in a lot more of those drones. That's the point that the governor is making. So if we can equip them, equip the police concurrently, as we're equipping the army, equipping the air force, equip the police
as well,
so that some of the functions that the army is forced to undertake now, because we are convinced that the police cannot do an excellent job. Once you equip the police sufficiently, they can leave the army can leave the issue of banditry to police to handle, while they face those people terrorizing our people in the northeast, and they exterminate them.
So Majid, aside, before we get into the issue of the provision of more military equipment for the army, Amotekun and other security outfits, as posited by Babajide right now, it should be a major focus for some state governors. But what are your thoughts on the efficacy of these security outfits now to, improve the country's level of insecurity?
The simple answer to that is that in the Northeast, the civilian JTF played a critical role in assisting the military to outrun some of the insurgents.
Right.
To the extent that the military had to incorporate some of these civilians into the army. So which means that if it's working, these are local hunters, local vigilante people who knows the terrain of those places. So the same concept is that of Amotekun. They are neighborhood people. They are in the neighborhood. They are hunters. They understand the forests. They live in those environments. They are fathers and their grandfathers farm in those forests, so they know the nooks and crannies of those roads. So they understand the topography. So it is easy for them. So that's why we have been recording some successes from Amotekun driving out some of these bandits. Posing as headsmen or kidnappers. So there has been increased level of success in the past few weeks. I've traveled also, and I'm from Ekiti. I've traveled to Ekiti State, and I've seen them on the roads. So the level of security is improving, but we are not yet there.
Right.
We are not there yet. So that's what Akeredolu is saying. But then I discussed with an uncle who is in the military. He's a brigadier general, and he said, MJ, this thing goes beyond just the ordinary. He said, he used a particular analogy. He said, amateurs discuss strategy, while professionals discuss logistics. The logistics is what they lack. just like Jide said, we need to continually improve the level of our logistics as in equipment. If you have the strategy, if there is no equipment, how do you, where's the logic? It is your logistics that you use, because you want to wonder, the Boko Haram insurgents they use e-locks. They will mount guns on e-locks. And that's what they use to overrun our guys. Although they fight in an unconventional way, they don't care, they don't follow any international convention. But then, if we have the UAVs, the unmanned area vehicles, the drones, we can use it to monitor them. There are some equipment that you can build into the satellite that can actually read thermal movements even of an ant in the forest. Talk less of that of a human being. That's what the Americans used to locate where those kidnappers they came from between Nigeria and the Niger border to come and rescue one American citizen. So that's the kind of technology they deployed. So we need to build on our logistics. And if we have a government that is standing on a tripod of security, anti-corruption, and job creation, employment, the security leg, are we getting it right? The Buhari government in 2015 and 2019 campaigned on a tripod of security, anti-corruption, and economy. But are we getting the security right? Almost everywhere in the country today, you have to sleep with your two eyes wide open. So that's what Akeredolu is talking about. He made that statement in Akure over the weekend at the launch of the Armed Forces Remembrance Week. It's everywhere. Because, he's saying just the facts. It's being downright factual.
All right, let me hold your thoughts there. We have another caller from Imo State. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Babajide. My name is Ken Kukes, I call from YouTube, my Imo State.
Great, so go ahead with your contribution.
You guys have spoken so well about insecurity in this country, and the truth about it is, I think government should rise up to their responsibility when it comes to funding of our armed forces. To a very large extent, I've been watching this program with keen interest, and every time this is the same issue we've been talking about. Our armed forces are underfunded to a very reasonable extent. I think another very pertinent issue that we must look at is, who is actually funding Boko Haram? Where are these people getting their funds from? Does it mean that they carry cash to this country if their funds are coming from outside the country? But if the money is coming from our banking system, what is CBN doing about it? Remember vividly during the NSAS protest, something happened. They blocked the account of peaceful protesters. And up to this moment, no one has ever taken cognizance of this particular issue of who is actually sponsoring these people and where they're getting their funds from. Remember a former head of state in Nigeria once said that if a soldier still lasts for more than 24 hours, the government is responsible. But I think it's high time we ensure that we look inwards, find out these people who are actually sponsoring Boko Haram, because that is the only place, that is the major panacea.
All right, thank you very much for your points raised. Thank you very much for your insights. But, before we wrap up this segment of the show, Babajide, what other areas do you think the government needs to focus, aside from the provision of military equipment? Now, the welfare of the military is also a major concern. Now, do you think the government has done enough in this regard?
They just have to. I don't want to say they are not doing enough, but I know that there are all kinds of encumbrances. I know that there were times when even the chief of army staff had to go and find money to pay the salaries of officers and men when bureaucracy got in the way and these guys weren't paid on time. Anyone familiar with what's going on will know that Burate had in the past on his own go and look for funds to just quickly pay salaries, because you can't keep people who are fighting a war
on the war front.
Yes, you can't refuse to pay them. It can lead to insurrection. So this is the thing. And many times too, once a soldier dies, we are thinking of pushing the family out of the barracks quickly. we have to design ways by which we can look after the widows of these soldiers. And I think the governor talked about that as well. And then when you go to the 44 hospital in Kaduna, where injured soldiers are taken care of, you weep. You see people with broken limbs and all the rest. We need to do much better for our soldiers than we are doing currently. And it's not simply to buy equipment. Their welfare has to be well taken care of. We must pay them the right wages, and their allowances have to be paid quickly. Civil service bureaucracy must not get in the way. Must not get in the way at all. So we have to address that. And then on the issue of the bandits telling our people
to pay ransom,
to pay levies before they can enjoy living in their communities. You know, it has happened in Katsina, it has happened in Zamfara.
Yeah.
Now, Niger State, we've got to realize that we have now reached that point whereby bandits believe that they are bigger than the Nigerian state. That is a challenge to the government, a challenge to the president, a challenge to the service chiefs, a challenge to the Minister of Defense, who himself used to be a general, a retired general, that look, we must crush these people. It's an insult that in a land where there are leaders, the Yorubas will say, Luti, Oloba, Tony Joye. You have a country, there's leadership, and people, undesirable elements will be telling our people that, look, unless you provide money, we will not allow you to farm, we will not allow you to live in peace. It's a big, big embarrassment. We are run out of time to talk about Niger, but the truth is, we need to focus on Niger. For that governor to have gone to meet the president, because we have been talking about his state for some time, for him to go and meet the president that they need security men, is because he can see clearly that those guys are spreading their tentacles.
Territory.
You know, from like 3 local governments, they've gone to like 6 or 7.
If they are meeting no restriction, they will continue to expand.
Yes, and they are pushing, they are sending people away from their homes. In Shiroro, for example, and people are moving into Zungeru. Women, pregnant women and children, they are trekking up to 40 kilometers to the site of the Zungeru Dam just to find a way to run away from bandits. It has to stop.
Indeed.
We can't continue to watch our people die like fowl. It has to stop. And if we don't crush these bandits, the president has said this is the year. We started counting. We want to see him do it. The willpower has to be there. If the willpower is there and is strong, we will be able to defeat these people. They are not undefeated. Who are they, by the way? We need to crush them.
Indeed. So, but that's a fine place to leave it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Babadi Kolade Otitoju and Mojid Jamiu, though you have a lot to say on this matter, but because of the time factor, we appreciate all you've said so far on the show this evening. And that's all on Journalist Hangout. Remember, join us again tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can watch a repeat broadcast tonight at 11 p.m. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Esther Mokwariola. Bye for now, and may God bless Nigeria.